In the town of Barrow, In-Furness, a preserved railway runs near the old Strand railway station at St George's Square. The line runs from Barrow along the In-Furness area to the towns of Dalton, Lindell, Arscombe and Kirkby. For these reasons, the line is known as the In-Furness Railway, or IFR for short. For many years, preserved locomotives, both steam and diesel, have run the line, from the year it opened in 1966 to this very day. This story tells the formation of the railway and how the first three engines, Stirling, a Great Northern Stirling Single, Joseph, a small Great Western saddle tank engine, and Falcon, an LNER A4 Pacific, met each other for the first time. But I mustn't say any more, or I'll spoil the entire story. Patrick Stirling was a Scottish railway engineer of the old Great Northern Railway. One of his most famous designs were express passenger engines which had a 422 wheel layout, which included a single pair of 8-foot driving wheels. Due to this, some railwaymen nicknamed them 8-footers, but to most they were known as Stirling Singles. The first series was introduced in 1870, the second in 1884, and the third in 1894. In 1895, after Patrick Stirling died, the decision was made to have one of the singles named after him. The engine they chose was from the 1894 series and had the number 1003. The day before 1003 was named, the foreman came to tell him the news. The Great Northern Railway has decided to name you Stirling, he said, as both a tribute to your designer and your brothers and sisters. Oh, thank you, sir, that would be an honour, cries 1003 excitedly. So the next day, 1003 was taken to Doncaster Works and was given his new nameplate. When he returned, ready for work, he was no longer called 1003, he was now Stirling, and was admired by everyone. But I'm sorry to say, Stirling's honour wouldn't last for long. Withdrawal of the singles began in 1899, as it was proved that the recently arrived Iver Atlantic were far stronger and more powerful. The last few examples, including Stirling, were taken off the fast passenger trains and were used on secondary service. Stirling was glad that there was still some work for him, but he was sad at the loss of some of his class. Then, one Sunday morning in 1914, Stirling's driver was told that tomorrow he was to take Stirling to Doncaster to be broken up. This made Stirling even more sad, and the driver and fireman were cross with the Great Northern Railway. Stirling's still got plenty of life in him, the driver said. I know, agreed the fireman. We've got to save him, we've got to. And I think I know what to do. The driver whispered his plan to the fireman, and agreed. We'll talk to the signalman when we reach the junction, he said, as they set off for work. Soon, Stirling was on the main line with a goods train. He didn't mind pulling trucks, as he had gotten quite used to it, ever since he was taking express trains. He soon reached the junction, where he had to wait for an express train to pass. Stirling was surprised to see his crew step out of the cab. We'll be back in a minute, Stirling, said the driver, and he and the fireman went into the signal box. Stirling was puzzled. He knew that his driver and fireman were old friends with the signalman, but they didn't usually talk to each other during work, at least not around this time. By the time the crew returned, the Atlantic thundered by with the express, and Stirling was able to be on the move again. What were you doing in there? Asked Stirling as they set off. We're not going to let you get scrapped, the driver said. We've found a way to save you. Stirling's face lit up for the first time in years. Tell me, he cried excitedly. You know that old abandoned shed down that long siding near the junction, explained the driver. Well, the signalman lives near there, and we all agreed that it would make a good hiding place for you. You may not be in service again, added the fireman, but it's certainly better than getting scrapped. Stirling didn't care if he wouldn't be in service again. All he wanted to do was to show that he could live on, and didn't have to be thrown onto the scrappy. When do we go there? He asked. Later tonight, replied the driver. We have to stop at the junction first to wait for the night's goods train to pass, but after that we should have a safe path to the siding. For the rest of the day, Stirling couldn't help feeling excited, although he tried not to show it as someone could get suspicious. Later that night, Stirling's crew arrived to prepare him for his escape. At last, when all was ready, they set off into the night. As they went along, Stirling was secretly nervous and worried that someone might see them, but he needn't worry, for they reached the junction safely. It wasn't long before the goods train rattled past. To Stirling's surprise, the engine pulling the train was an Atlantic. That's strange, he thought. I didn't know Atlantics called goods trains as well as passenger trains. As soon as the train was out of sight, the signalman came out of his box to talk to Stirling. Right, you're safe to proceed now, he said. I'll see you in the morning. He said goodnight to the driver and fireman and walked back to his box, and Stirling puffed quietly over the points and waited for his driver to change them. When he did, he got back into the cab, and Stirling puffed slowly down the siding towards the old shed. Stirling's driver had to be careful and drive slowly, as he couldn't quite see what was behind him due to Stirling's large tender. However, they reached the shed and Stirling backed down into it. He surveyed his surroundings, and behind some trees he could see a glimpse of what he assumed was the signalman's house. The crew jumped down and walked to the front of the Single. Well, I guess we'll see you whenever we have time, said the driver. Thank you for getting me here, replied Stirling, but I must ask, will you use your jobs now that you have no engine? Huh, I doubt that, chuckled the fireman. We'll probably just be given another engine. Whatever happens to us, added the driver, we'll come and see you as much as possible. They all said good night, and the crew walked home. Then Stirling shut his eyes and went to sleep. feeling more relaxed than he had before. When Stirling awoke, it was morning, and he saw the signalman approach him. "Good morning, Stirling," he said. "How are you feeling?" "Never better, sir," replied Stirling cheerfully. "Now, I will mostly be at the junction, so I won't be able to see you as often, but my wife told me that she will keep you company when she has the time. I must be off, or I'll be late. Goodbye," and he quickly walked off. And sure enough, whenever she could, the signalman's wife would come to the old shed and talk to Stirling. She even sometimes cleaned him, as dust from the shed made Stirling's paint dirty. A week had passed and still Stirling had been informed about his crew. They had been reassigned to either Atlantic, and sometimes stopped near the junction to allow other trains to pass. They would ask how Stirling was doing, and the signalman would tell his wife, who would tell Stirling how his driver and fireman were doing. 4 years later, in 1918, the Great War ended, which was very pleasant for Stirling, and many years later, the railway nationalised, forming the London and North Eastern Railway, the London Midland and Scottish Railway, the Great Western Railway, and the Southern Railway. The signalman's wife told Stirling about a new class of engines on the London and North Eastern Railway called Pacifics. They're going to have a 4/6 two-wheel arrangement, and they're supposed to be stronger than the Atlantics, she said. I hear that the prototype of the class has been sent to the North Western Railway. Stirling had heard of the NWR, but he didn't know much about it. What he did know was that it was constructed in 1914, and who the first two locomotives working on there were: In-Furness Railway K2, or larger Single, and the London Brighton and South Coast Railway E2. A few years passed, and the LNER became suspicious. Rumours began to spread that 2 Stirling singles had escaped the cutter's torch. One of them, of course, was Stirling, and they believed the other was the last of the 1894 series built. One day, Stirling's old driver and fireman were having lunch when the foreman came up to them. "You two are to report to the manager's office at once," he said. "Whatever for?" asked the driver. "He said something about an engine called Stirling, but I can't quite remember." The fireman looked nervously at the driver. "Do you think he found out?" "He couldn't have, but don't worry, just act normal." They put away their lunch and went to the office. "You wanted to see us, sir?" said the driver. The manager, who was signing some paperwork, looked up. "Many railwaymen believe that your old engine hasn't been scrapped," he said. "Is this true?" "Certainly not," replied the driver. "We didn't want to take Stirling there, but we had no choice." "Well, old scrapyard reports say that Stirling has not been scrapped, and we can't be sure if this is true or a mistake." "Well, with all the Stirling singles coming to get scrapped, I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow made some mistake," said the fireman. The manager thought and stared at them. "Well, I'll let you two off for now, but we will continue the search," he said sternly. Dismissed. The driver and fireman said nothing as they left. A few weeks later, the search was called off, as with no evidence that the 2 singles were still alive, they had to assume that they must have been scrapped, along with their brothers and sisters. Stirling was delighted when he heard the news, as he had been rather stressed. But many years later, he would discover that there are some things far worse than scrap. 1939, a grim year for Britain, as it was the beginning of the Second World War. Every night, German bombs rained over the cities of London, Bath, Norwich and many others. Some nights, blackouts went out over towns and villages to camouflage themselves from German bombers, but this plan itself had its flaws, as without any light, many accidents occurred on road and rail. One night, Stirling was in his shed. That morning it was raining, so the signalman closed the shed doors so Stirling didn't get wet. It was now dark, and it was still raining. It was also very late, and there was no sign of the signalman or his wife. "Where are they?" thought Stirling. "They have never taken this long." What he didn't know was that the signalman and his wife died in a car accident. They were driving home during a blackout, very confused, when a car ran head-on into them. "Oh, well," sighed Stirling. "I'll just go to sleep. It will help pass the time, I suppose." Trees and bushes grew all around the old siding until it was completely camouflaged. You would never know a shed was there, let alone a Stirling Single asleep inside. In the western part of Britain, there is a small coal mine not far from Swindon. It served most areas of the Great Western Railway. Joseph, a small Great Western saddle tank engine, works there, loading trucks full of coal and takes them to a junction, where bigger engines then take them to other places far away. Although Joseph doesn't mind the dirt and coal dust, he doesn't get much company. The only time other engines arrive is when the workload gets too much for Joseph alone. One day, in 1959, Joseph awoke ready for work. As he steamed out of his shed and started to shunt, he noticed that there wasn't as much work as there usually was, and the first train ready for the junction was only half as it usually was. Joseph couldn't understand it. He was glad that the train wasn't that heavy, but he was also very worried. When he arrived at the junction, he found a black fly waiting for him. "You look worried," the black fly said. "I am," puffed Joseph. "This coal train is usually much longer than this. What is going on?" The black fly paused and looked down at his brothers. "Modernisation," he said sadly. "It's happening everywhere. Steam engines are being replaced by diesels, not because they are stronger and more powerful, but because they are more modern, cheaper to run, and easier to operate. Soon, steam will be extinct, and if there are no steam engines, then there's no need for coal," finished Joseph quietly. "Exactly," said the black fly. The coal trucks were coupled to the train, and the black fly puffed silently and sadly away. Joseph watched him go. He knew about the modernisation plan that was introduced in 1952, but he didn't know it would affect him. Over the coming weeks, more lorries appeared at the mine and carried more coal than Joseph could. Worse still was that Joseph began to feel ill, and a diesel shunter came to take over his work. When Joseph got better, the foreman came to see him. He didn't look happy. "I have some bad news," he said. "Due to the fact that there is no more coal to be transferred from here, British Railways have decided to close this mine." Joseph sighed. He saw this coming. "What will happen to me?" he asked. "Paddington Yards are in need of a shunter, so you will work there until new diesel shunters are made." So later that afternoon, Joseph arrived at Paddington and started work. Over the next few years, more diesels began to appear at the sheds. and did jobs that steam engines once did. The thought of being scrapped and replaced tormented Joseph. When he slept, he always had nightmares of what might happen to him in the future. One day, Joseph brought some coaches to the station. He then ran onto a siding to rest. As he did so, he noticed a smartly dressed gentleman nearby. He thought nothing of him until the man came up to him. "Hello," he said. Joseph was surprised, but looked away shyly. "Hello," said the man again. "What is your name?" Joseph looked at him. "Joseph. My name is Joseph, sir." Before the man could speak, two other gentlemen approached him. "Found someone, Peter?" asked one. "Yes, Barry, I was thinking about this one. His name is Joseph and he looks sad, so I was going to ask him what was wrong." "Who are you lot?" asked Joseph. He was very puzzled. "Oh," Barry said, "sorry I ignored you. My name is Barry, and this is Peter and Adam. We are directors of a railway which is currently being built near Barrow, In-Furness, and are in need of engines to run it. While we allow diesels, we thought we should save from steam engines." Joseph's face lit up when he heard this. "And considering that you're small and easy to maintain," added Peter, "I thought we should buy you, as you could help finish the line." Barry thought for a moment. He turned to Peter. "I think we found just the engine we're looking for. Let's go to King's Cross and talk to Dr. Beeching. I wish I could talk more, Joseph, but we must be quick. Goodbye." And the three men went back to the station. Joseph couldn't help smiling. He didn't know anything about this new railway, but he felt that he would be more safe working there than on British railways. Falcon is one of many members of the A4 Pacific class. Designed by Sir Nigel Gresley, Chief Engineer of the old London and North Eastern Railway, Falcon and his class have lived up to what they were built to be: fast, strong and reliable. But like magic, that would later change quite quickly. With modernisation at work, steam began to disappear on British railways. Each day, when Falcon awoke, he noticed less steam engines in the shed. This upset him deeply. One morning, the shed-master came to see the engines. "Some preservation people are coming this evening to buy one of you. I don't know who they'll pick, but whoever it is will work on the preservation railway in Barrow In-Furness." All the engines were excited and chattered about who would be chosen. Falcon, however, didn't think he would be chosen, but he would be happy for whoever it was. That evening, when the engines were turned one by one, the shed-master and three gentlemen approached the shed. "Engines," he began, "meet Barry, Peter and Adam Thompson. They're brothers and directors of the In-Furness Railway. One of you will be chosen to work there." He turned to the three men. "I'll leave you three to make your decision." So the three men began walking around, looking at all the engines. They all sat in silence, waiting patiently for the final decision. The last engine they looked at was Falcon. To his surprise, The men seemed very interested in him. "This A4 is very clean," commented Adam. "His crew does care for him a lot," said the shed-master. "Tomorrow he's got a goods train to take up to Scotland in the morning. If you want him, you could take him tomorrow afternoon, after he's taken the train." Barry thought for a moment and looked at the big engine. An express engine would be useful on their railway, once it's completed, of course. He discussed it with Peter and Adam, who seemed to agree. Barry turned to the shed-master. "We have made our decision. We choose Falcon." Falcon gasped. He was chosen to work on the In-Furness Railway. Oh my!" he cried. "Well, thank you, sir." Barry smiled. "We'll talk to Dr. Beeching in the morning about our decision, and see you in the afternoon, Falcon. Good night." And with that, the three men and the shed-master departed. The other engines were disappointed that they weren't chosen, but they were happy that one of their shed mates would be safe on the cutter's torch. The next morning, Falcon rolled out of his shed and moved towards the yards. He wasn't too happy about taking trucks, but today he didn't mind as much. He found his train in the siding. The trucks weren't too happy. No, they cried. "We want a proper engine, not a big slice of cheese." Falcon took no notice. "Come along," he said. "I don't want any nonsense." And with that, he steamed out of the yard. As Falcon approached the main line, the trucks began making a plan. "When we reach that hill, hold him back as long as you can," said a van. "Oh, well, our original," grumbled the tanker. "Oh, just shut up and do it, you twat." At first, everything was going smoothly. Falcon was running nicely, and the trucks came quietly, until they reached the hill. This was where the trucks began their tricks. Hold back, they yelled, and they pulled Falcon back as hard as possible. Falcon was very cross. Will you stop crossing around and get moving?" he shouted. But the trucks just laughed. Then there was trouble. The coupling between Falcon and the first truck was old and rusty. It suddenly snapped. The long train began rolling down the hill, picking up speed. "Oh crap!" cried Falcon. "We must go after them." His driver agreed, and they raced down the hill after the trucks. The trucks rattled past the station and on towards the junction. As the signal box of the junction came into view, the train suddenly swerved into a siding, which was covered by bushes. They ran along an overgrown line and crashed head-on into an old shed. When Falcon arrived at the scene, he was shocked. Most of the trucks were derailed, but a few remained on the track. "Is anybody hurt?" called Falcon. "Oh, nothing serious, I assure you," an old voice wheezed from inside the shed. "My brothers are a bit dented, but I don't think I'll need them anymore." "Well, that's good," huffed Falcon, who glared angrily at the trucks. "You idiots! What did you hope to achieve doing that?" "Some stupid reason, no doubt," Falcon muttered in agreement. Then he realised he was talking to an old shed. "Hold on," he said. "Who am I talking to?" "Me, I believe. My name is Stirling. I'm an old Stirling Single, and I've been here for years. At least, that's what I believe." "Well, I would love to hear about it," interrupted the driver, "but I think it's wise that we should get help first." "I'll go and get some," said the fireman, and he went up the line to the nearest signal box and told the signalman about the accident, and Stirling. Soon, Falcon returned with some workmen and a crane to clear up the mess. He was surprised to find Barry, Peter, and Adam waiting for them. "What are you three doing here?" he asked. "We were told about this accident," said Barry, "so we wanted to know if you were alright." "We were also informed about this Stirling Single that was inside this old shed," added Adam. "Yes, that's right, but he hasn't yet told me why he's here." "We'll have to clear all these trucks first before we can get him out," said a workman. It was a long process, but soon all the trucks were derailed and taken away. A chain was attached between Stirling and the crane, and with all his strength, Falcon pulled as hard as he could. Everyone watched as the old engine, for the first time in years, began to move. "Oh, I am stiff, he groaned as he was taken out of the shed. Everyone gasped. Due to the dust and rust, it was clear that Stirling had been in the shed for a very long time. "I thought I would never see the sun again," he smiled. "What on earth are you doing in there?" asked Falcon. "I was taken to the shed in 1914. I was due to be scrapped around that time, you see, and I was quite upset about it. Fortunately, my crew made a plan to hide me in this shed, and to be protected by the junction signalman and his wife. But one night, in 1941, they strangely disappeared, and I haven't seen them since." Barry thought for a moment, looking at the old engine. "And I guess British Railways won't want to put you in service again," he said gravely. "I don't know what British Railways is, but in all honesty I don't think any railway would want me." "Perhaps you can work on my railway," suggested Barry. Stirling raised an eyebrow. "Your railway?" he said. "Yes, the In-Furness Railway," said Peter. "It is currently being built and is in need of engines. So far we've bought a Great Western shunting engine a few years ago to finish the construction, and only yesterday bought this A4. You may be a bit rusty and broken, but we can easily fix that. All we've got to do is take you to Doncaster with Falcon." "Why do I have to go to the works?" asked Falcon. "We need to make sure you're in perfect condition," explained Barry, "and to have someone to talk to Stirling while he's being repaired." Stirling couldn't help smiling. Being repaired and working again was more than he could have wanted. "Thank you, sir," he said. "I'll be more than happy to work on your railway. Once I'm repaired, of course." And so, after making some arrangements with British Railways, Falcon and Stirling were taken to Doncaster Works. During their stay, Falcon told Stirling all the changes that happened on the railways after the Second World War, the formation of British Railways, the modernisation plan to replace steam engines with diesels, and how, since then, many steam locomotives and branch lines have and are being restored by enthusiasts. "It's nice to know that there are those who still care for us," Stirling said. Falcon agreed. A few months later, Stirling had been fully restored with new parts and his original green paint. Falcon had also been repainted in LNER God's Blue and was proud of it. Then, with lip fires and coupled together, the two engines left the works and set off for their new home. The hours passed. Her journey from the east to the west was longer than the two engines expected. But at last they arrived at Barrow In-Furness. The night foreman was waiting for them. "Ah, there you are," he said. "Now, if you take these points here, you will find the shed, and the manager will see you tomorrow." Falcon and Stirling did so, and before long they backed down into a large 4-row engine shed. "Well, this was unexpected," Falcon said, looking around. "This Great Western engine must have been working pretty hard to make this." "Speaking of which," said Stirling, "where is this engine?" "I'm here," called a voice. Falcon and Stirling looked. Backing down between them was a small Great Western saddle tank. "You must be the two new engines I've been expecting," he said. "Stirling and Falcon, I believe." "Yes, that's right. You must be this Great Western engine we've been expecting." "Yes, that's right. My name is Joseph." "So, how long have you been here?" asked Falcon. "Oh, I've been here for 3 years. I was bought by the directors in 1963. "Well, you must have worked very hard to make this," commented Stirling. "Well, I didn't do it all on my own," laughed Joseph. "Some diesels were borrowed from British Railways to help." He paused. They weren't so happy about that, but they got on with it. "I had a feeling there would be some criticism," sighed Falcon. "There will be those who will disappoint us and disagree with our ways, Falcon," Stirling said thoughtfully. "But as long as there are those who understand us and allow us to keep steam going, it makes it all worth it." After that, the engines silently agreed and went to sleep. Despite the fact they were from different railways and different eras, perhaps they would consider each other not as rivals, but as one. I hope so. Don't you?
When you think life's unfair and you feel nobody cares, don't be afraid to open the door, then you'll find you're not alone anymore. Sometimes there's rainy days, you may need help along the way. gladden our hearts. Wherever we stray, remember this day. Friends together.